The main focus of this module is on solving percentage problems. So before I talk about that in the next video, I want to spend just a few minutes talking about what percent means and how to change numbers between fractions, decimals, and percents. The word percent means how many out of 100. So if we have 41%, that means 41 out of 100, or 41 hundredths as a fraction. If we wanted to, we could certainly go through and write that then as a decimal, 0.41 or 0.41. If you have 7%, it means 7 out of 100 as a fraction, or if I wanted to write that as a decimal, 7 hundredths is 0.07. Oftentimes you might see something that is more than 100%. For instance, if someone gets bonus points on a test, they might get 100% on the test plus some bonus points. But let's say we had 123%. 123% as a fraction would be 123 out of 100. And if I wanted to write that as a decimal, it would be 1.23. Because if I were to take 123 divided by 100 on a calculator, it would give me that 1.23. The one thing that's nice about going from percent to fraction to decimal is that you'll notice is that the numbers are always the same. So I have a 7, and a 7. I have a 123, a 123, and a 1.23. The numbers are the same. I just needed to put in that decimal point. It is easy to change numbers then from percent to decimal if you notice what happens to the decimal point. I have 41%, and there's an understood decimal after the whole number 41 right after the 1. And notice that in the decimal, it came before the 4. Really what I did is I moved the decimal point 2 spots to the left and ended up with it right before the 4. Here's an understood decimal point after the 7. And I moved it 2 decimal points. I needed to put a placeholder 0 in front of the 7 in order to do that. And you'll notice that it came to be 0.07. There's an understood decimal point in the number 123 after the 3. Once again, I moved that decimal point 2 spots to the left, and you can see that it ends up at 1.23. So the rule is to change from a percent to a decimal, you just move the decimal point 2 spots to the left. Now the reason you do that is because percent means how many out of 100 or hundredths, and hundredths is 2 spots over from the decimal point. So if you're given something like 58.9% and I want to change that to a decimal, I would just move the decimal point 2 spots over and it would be 0.589 as a decimal. I recently saw a statistic where it said something increased by 0.3%. 0.3%, if I wanted to change that to a decimal, I would need to move the decimal point to the left 2 spots and put in 2 placeholder zeros. So I could also say that it increased by 3 thousandths because I have 0.003. If I want to change from a decimal to a percent, I just do the opposite. So if I have 0.87 being my decimal and I want to change it to a percent, this time rather than moving the decimal point 2 spots to the left, I'm going to move it 2 spots to the right. So 0.87 as a percent is 87%. If I have as a decimal 0.425, I want to move the decimal point 2 spots to the right, and my percent is going to be 42.5%. Finally, If I have a decimal of 3.38, moving that decimal point 2 spots to the right would be the same thing as 338%. Being able to change numbers from decimal to percent is something that is done quite a bit in mathematics. Oftentimes in real life, you do need to be able to switch numbers between fractions, decimals, and percents. So here I have a table with 6 different rows, and at times I have the fraction listed, other times the decimal, other times the percent. I'd like you to copy this table if you would, and then pause this and see if you can fill in the missing spots, and then turn this back on again and see if you agree with the answers that I have. Feel free to use a calculator if needed to go from the fraction to the decimal. You can see that I have the answers listed here now, and you can go ahead and check your answers with my answers. Notice that in the fraction area at times I did give more than one fraction because I just reduced down to lowest terms. You don't have to do that, you don't need that, but it is something that you can do because there are many different names that you can give for the same fraction. Once you've mastered changing from fractions to decimals to percents, the only other thing I'd like to talk about in this video is putting fractions, decimals, percents in order from least to greatest. So here I have 5 different numbers, some in fractions, some decimals, some percents. And once again, I'd like you to pause this if you would, put these and then put these in order if you would please from least to greatest. If I was going to do this, the first thing I would do is change them all so they're in the same type of number. So I would either change them all to percentages or all to decimals. I'm going to start by changing them all to decimals. So I know that 2/3 is 0.6 with a line over it. 61% is 0.61. I already have 0.6 written as a decimal. I know that 5/8 is 0.625. And I know that 59% is 0.59. After that, it becomes much easier to put these in order, and the 0.59 would be the smallest. So my smallest original number that I have is that 59%, followed by the 0.6, followed by the 61%, then the 5/8, and the largest number of all is the 2/3. So once again, putting the numbers in order from least to greatest is an important skill, and it doesn't matter how the number is first presented. As I said at the beginning of this video, the main focus of this module is to be able to solve percentage problems, and using the ideas I discussed in this video will be helpful when we are doing that. Next, I would like you to complete the quick check on this video, which can be found next. If you do well in the quick check, you are ready for the next video. If, after doing the quick check, you would like more work with this, please look for some additional links I have listed on the website, or contact me for additional help. Thank you.